Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest of the series of Brexit webinars from the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. Without any further ado, I'm going to hand you over to the Head of Import Controls here at the Department, Hazel Sheridan.
Thanks very much, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. As Tom said, you're very welcome to what is, I think, the 19th in a series of Brexit-related webinars that we have run, and the 13th specifically dealing with import controls. So just for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Hazel Sheridan. I'm the head of the division responsible in the Department of Agriculture for carrying out SBS controls at border control posts. Joining us today, we have colleagues from Revenue and from the HSE, and a range of panelists that are here to answer the questions. Before I say anything more about the running order, I want to acknowledge the work that goes into setting up these webinars, and in particular to thank Tom and David Grant and Sally for all the work they've done in making this happen. And then, of course, yourselves and all the presenters we have today for setting aside the time to attend this webinar. The other thing I want to say is that this is your webinar. If there are things you don't understand, then let us know. We'll have a question and answer session at the end. We're also in a position to take any questions subsequently by email. But I do want to emphasize we're doing this for you for the purposes of industry. If there are things we could do better, I think also let us know. I think it's very important to acknowledge that we are only 10 months into the operation, and it's really only like any startup, when you actually get the business up and running, that you can see what's working well and what's not working quite as well as we expected, and what could we do to make it better. So one of the presentations we have today is dealing with that. It's dealing with changes we have made to our INIS portal to make it easier for you as business operators to track your consignments and to know what is going on. So I'm really looking forward to that session. I think there's some great developments. I think it's very important to recognize that changing systems or processes takes time. So there may be situations where we know there's a change we'd like to make, or yourselves would like to see made, but just again to recognize, as you'll know from running your own businesses, that change takes time, and sometimes the change isn't just happening as quickly as people would like it to happen. So I'm starting off with a small introduction. As we can see, we're then going to hand over, I think, to the team who are dealing with the changes to the INIS portal. We have Anne, who's going to say something about registrations and issues around queries and how we're managing those. We also, of course, before that, we have a colleague from Revenue who's just going to talk about some issues. So we have colleagues from Revenue, HSE, and from our operations sections, which are going to just mention issues that we see that are causing delays, and maybe so that people can understand what they might need to do to try and minimize those delays. It's also, I think, going to be helpful for those of you who are involved in export certification, that you will be able to see what are the things that can go wrong, and what you might need to have control of in your processes. You know, what are the critical things that you need to have control of? And there's a lot of experience in terms of import controls that can be shared with those who will be involved in export certification going forward. So in terms of finalize or completing the introduction, I'm going to start actually by zooming out, and hopefully you can see these slides. Yeah, I think you can see them if I press that button. So just to share some slides with you. So I'm going to actually start by zooming out, because we're going to zoom in a little bit later, but I'm going to start by zooming out and really to look at what we have collectively achieved together, because it is a very substantial achievement for the first 10 months of 2021. So in total, the Department of Agriculture has delivered just over 53,000 import controls. this in a situation where in years up to 2021, on average, we would have done maybe 4,000 or 5,000 controls a year. So far this year, 53,000 controls delivered. You can see from this slide how they break down. So as expected, the majority of those are are products of animal origin. So that might be food, it might be an animal byproduct, it might be an animal feed that contains an animal product, a whole variety of things. So as expected, they're the biggest chunk of our business. The line in light blue there is the plant products. So these are regulated plants, and we're obliged to carry out controls on regulated plants. So we can see on a weekly basis that varies around the sort of 300 mark. The green line relates to live animals. So that can be quite variable depending on what's going on. If there's a race meetings in the UK or anything like that, those numbers can come and go. And the Department of Agriculture is also responsible for the carrying out of checks to make sure that products coming in from third countries do not contain pesticides that are not authorised for use within the European community. So that's just to give a sense. The next slide shows the breakdown of where those controls are being carried out. So again, as expected, the vast majority of those controls are required in Dublin Port. That's where most of the trade is coming through. You can see the numbers for Rosslare, Shannon and Dublin Airport. In terms of the two airports, we would have been doing something similar to those numbers in years up to 2021. So we're not seeing huge change at the moment at the two airports, but obviously a huge change at Dublin Port. And up until January 1st, 2021, we didn't have a border control post at Rosslare. So obviously that's a new operation. So very much what we expected. Dublin Port is the focus of the activity and where the biggest challenge lies. Third slide is just to give people a sense of the number of consignments that have been rejected. So the point I want to make is that a lot has gone very well. And sometimes it can be human nature to focus on things that are not going so well, rather than to step back and look at actually what has gone well. So the good news is that very small numbers of consignments have been rejected. Our focus with yourselves is to do absolutely all we can to make sure that the consignments can be released onto the single market. That obviously can only be done if they're in compliance with European legislation. So as I said, our focus is on very much assisting industry in ensuring that they are in compliance. And what you can see on this slide, and these slides will be shared subsequently, is the breakdown in the reasons for rejection. And again, just to draw anybody's attention who might be involved in exports going forward, what are the things that can cause consignments to be rejected? So again, won't go over those in detail, but they're there, and they'll be there for, as I said, in terms of what gets published. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over, I think, to Ray, who's going to make a presentation on behalf of revenue in terms of issues that are causing problems. I may not be able to stay, I'm afraid, for the full webinar this afternoon, but I'll certainly be back at the end. I'll be really interested to hear the questions and the comments. And again, we look forward to receiving some of those by email if there isn't just the opportunity to do that today.